Institute, affiliated with Memorial University and with a record of over 150 publications. He has made a great contribution to the field of remote sensing and environmental monitoring. And his interests of research include image processing, multimedia data analytics, machine learning, and geo big data. So let's just now give time to Dr. Masoud and for the talk.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zhang, for the introduction. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everyone see my presentation and it is in presenter view.
Yeah, it's perfect good.
Okay, sounds good. And hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to share the outcome of my research and my grad student research in the application of satellite remote sensing for environmental monitoring with a special focus on wetland monitoring. And if I have time in this talk, I will also talk about my other GHG emission monitoring projects and maybe other environmental applications. But let's see. Okay, before starting my talk, let me provide you a brief overview of SECOR, the organization I'm proud to be part of. And SECOR stands as non-profit research and development organization located within the Memorial University campus in St. John's. We also have 2 other offices in Ottawa and Halifax. And our main focus is in applied research and addressing challenges in industry in 3 different fields: system and remote sensing, civil and geotechnical engineering, and ocean and ice engineering. And for almost 50 years, our dedicated team at SECOR has been at the lead of studying and analyzing remote sensing data. And we also have been lucky enough to collaborate with 1,300 students in these years and develop a rich environment of learning and innovation at SECOR. And these students have had also access to the SECOR resources and the outcome of our projects. And as the map in the bottom of my slide shows, SECOR's reach is truly global. We have delivered projects on every continent and in most oceans, showcasing the diversity and the impact of our work at SECOR. Here we can see some of our clients, and during this journey, we have had a chance of collaboration on significant projects such as the development of calibration transponders for Sentinel-1 satellites, for European Space Agency, or producing the wetland inventory maps of Canada, and currently a new project for circumpolar wetland monitoring for the government of Canada. And a little bit about myself. As Dr. Zhang mentioned, I'm a remote sensing technical lead at SECOR, and I have a cross-appointment position with the ECE at Memorial University. Now I also lead my remote sensing lab, where our focus is on the application of remote sensing and AI development to advance environmental monitoring practices. Currently in my lab, I have a postdoctoral researcher, 5 PhD students, and 3 master students from Memorial University. I'm also co-supervisor of 4 PhD students from SUNY ESF University in New York and 2 PhD students from University of Tehran. We also have several R&D collaboration with other universities and organizations such as Harvard University, INRS, Guelph University, NASA JPL scientists, and IIT in India, and more. And with over 10 years of experience in remote sensing and satellite data processing, we significantly contributed in the field of remote sensing with developing several novel techniques and methodologies for different application of environmental monitoring using Earth observation data. and more than 150 publications in this area. My R&D project have been supported by important funding agency with over $5 million secured from both industrial and research grant, including organizations such as European Space Agency, Natural Resources Canada, IEEE, and NSEC Discovery Grant. And I'm also acting as associate editor for a couple of journals, and I had several national and international voucher summer school. And the good news is I will organize a summer school this year and this summer, 1 week before CSRS 2024 in June in Halifax. And stay tuned for the updates, since we have a lot of student travel award for these schools, and I hope that I can see some of you there. And what else? And I also prepared a couple of manuals and tutorials in radar remote sensing. For example, I wrote the first RCM, which is radars at constellation mission tutorials for data processing of these satellites under contract to Canadian Space Agency and Natural Resource Canada. Okay, now let's talk about remote sensing and its application. Remote sensing in general can be defined as a science and technology of collecting information about objects or environments from a distance without direct physical contact. And for example, photography can be a very common form of remote sensing. And there are different ways to collect data in remote sensing, and different sensors are used depending on the application, from climate change study, ocean monitoring, or Natural Resource Canada to crop monitoring. But let's focus on wetland monitoring in this talk. And the first question here is, what is wetlands? Wetlands have several definitions, but generally they may be described as the area that experiences wet conditions, at least periodically during the growing season and permanently in all season, and located between dryland and a water body. And according to the Canadian Wetland Classification System, wetlands in Canada are categorized into 5 classes: bog and fen, which are peatland, marsh, swamp, and shallow water. And each of these wetland types has its own advantages and services. And these services include providing habitat for both animal and plant species, enhancing water quality, storing large amount of carbon and nitrogen, protecting from natural hazards such as flood, and providing some recreational activities such as fishing and hiking. Despite these benefits and services, the knowledge in order to support wetland protection and conservation is kind of limited, scattered, and also incomplete. And to fill this gap, there are several ways to map and monitor wetland. In the past, scientists used field surveying and later aerial photography to map wetlands over smaller areas. However, as the size of the area of a study gets bigger and bigger, these methods become very costly and time-consuming. In contrast, remote sensing with satellite imagery is an excellent tool to study wetlands because of the large geographical extents that remote sensing imagery can have, and also high temporal coverage. Therefore, recent advances in remote sensing, satellite imagery, machine learning, and cloud computing platforms provide us an excellent opportunity to monitor wetlands or any other ecosystems at large scale. Now I start with machine learning models for large-scale wetland mapping. In the past 5 years, we successfully delivered different wetland products in more than 10 projects, proposed several novel algorithms to create these products at different scales, from 1 meter resolution for urban wetland mapping to 10 meter resolution at national scale, and published more than 45, 50 journal articles related to wetland monitoring using Earth observation data. And accordingly, Seacor and Memorial University were ranked as a top 5 organization globally in wetland mapping research in the Web of Science report. For example, we had a project for the city of St. John's municipality, and in this specific project, the main purpose of the project was to produce the first detailed wetland map at 1 meter spatial resolution with a minimum mapping unit of 100 square meter, and a combination of very high-res satellite imagery such as world view and GeoEye, and LiDAR data was used in an object-based framework to produce these high-res wetland inventory map. And in this figure, we can see the spatial distribution of our reference data on the left, the wetland inventory map in the middle, and the connectivity map in the right figure. And the overall accuracy of this product was about 95%. And the result of this project is also available on the City of St. John's website as a WebGIS layer. And after these local study, we expanded our study region from local pilot sites to provincial and later national scale, which have been recognized by several university, governmental organizations, and environmental companies. So we developed an end-to-end pipeline on Google Earth Engine for the integration of optical and SAR data to produce the first wetland map of Newfoundland by processing of about 3,000 Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 satellite data. And in this slide, we can see an overview of workflow used in this study, which starts with pre-processing of Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2, feature extraction, and then an object-based image analysis framework, which includes segmentation, random forest classification, and map production. The figure on the right shows the result of a classification map and a few zooming area along with Google Earth imagery. We examine different scenarios in this study, and the best result was achieved based on the combination of optical and SAR data in an object-based framework. And this study was the first attempt for large-scale wetland mapping in Canada, and the result was published in Remote Sensing Journal. In another study at provincial scale, we processed all Landsat archive data collected in the past 30 years over Newfoundland in order to identify and quantify wetland changes. And basically, we produce a classified map every 10 years, and then we compare the classified map, for example, in 1985 to 1995, and 1995 to 2005, and then 2015, and quantify the changes in different wetland types. And then we move toward producing the national scale wetland map of Canada. We have produced 3 generations of national wetland inventory maps under 3 different contracts with NRCan. And here we can see some of the extracted features that have been used in our 3rd generation product. And it is interesting to note that we processed, I think, more than 100,000 satellite imagery to produce the 3rd generation of Canadian wetland inventory at 10 meter spatial resolution. And we are really proud of this product and this project, since Canada is the only country in the world that has national wetland map inventory at 10 meter resolution. And other countries like US, China have their own wetland inventories, but at 30 meter resolution, since they use Landsat dataset to generate the product. And if you are interested, more details about our national wetland mapping project can be found in these 3 papers that have been published in Canadian Journal of Remote Sensing and IEEE GSTARS. Our next move on wetland mapping and monitoring at large scale was targeting Arctic. We recently signed a contract with NRCan to start an international collaboration to produce the circumpolar wetland inventory. And in the early phase of this project, we found interesting information about the importance of wetland conservation, specifically in the Arctic. For example, did you know that approximately 60% of the Arctic is covered by wetlands? Or these ecosystems in the Arctic are facing serious challenges such as rising temperature, permafrost thaw, and shift in hydrology and vegetation, and also surface albedo are basically changing the landscape in the Arctic. And these changes have huge impact on wetland properties, function, services, and overall extent of these valuable ecosystem. As such, we develop similar workflow to our national wetland inventory, but we faced more challenges in this project because of the inaccessibility of several wetland complexes in order to collect reference data, and the optimum reference data collected by field visiting, which is not the case for most of wetland in the Arctic. And in order to train our AI-based model, we need to have a good amount of training data. So we contacted 7 different countries, wetland experts in this project, and we just received some limited available training data set in this project. Therefore, we have to develop a new methodology and an alternative way to produce these training data set. So we developed a desktop-based approach in which our wetland experts use high-res satellite data and several ancillary information to produce the training data for AI models. And here we can see a general workflow for the proposed desktop-based method. But I don't want to go through the details of this approach in this talk, and I may need to skip over this slide as well to save my time for talking about other applications. Okay, here we can see this table which summarize the feature that we use in the Arctic wetland mapping. And basically, as you can see, we have multi-spectral features from Sentinel-2. We have original bands, and we have some, for example, spectral indices like NDVI, NDWI, SAWI, and GCVI. We have multi-frequency radar imagery from Sentinel-1 C-band dual polarized data and ALOS Pulsar 2. And we also have topographical features, environmental feature, and hydrological feature from different data sets. And by combining them, we will make sure that we have enough ability to distinguish similar wetland types at large scale. And here are some of the results we got for this project in US, Finland, and Canada, part of the circumpolar region. And here we can see, for example, the NDVI feature for the entire Arctic. And we hope that we can complete the inventory, the wetland inventory map for the entire Arctic in this summer. In our another study, we focus on wetland and water bodies at continental scale based on Ramsar sites in North America. And for this specific study, we use 40 years of archive Landsat data over North America to produce this water occurrence map, which is a great tool for long-term monitoring of wetlands and water body changes. And in addition to mapping and detecting change in wetlands, we have several studies to monitor a range of biophysical parameters, such as above ground biomass estimation, and wetland health parameters, which are key matrices for assessing the overall productivity of wetlands. For example, in this study, we use optical and SAR satellite and hyperspectral airborne data, as well as some field observation for wetland above ground biomass estimation. And on the right, we can see the produced AGB map for wetlands located in the southern part of Louisiana in the US. We also developed several advanced deep learning models which have been specifically designed for satellite wetland classification, mapping, and monitoring. And I try to briefly discuss some of them here in the next couple of slides. In the first study, we proposed a three-stream AI model based on 2D, 3D convolutional neural network, as well as a swing transformer models to extract information from three different sources of data, including SAR, optical, and LiDAR data. We produced a wetland classified map with a really high accuracy in this study, but the processing time for this design seems a lot for this model, specifically if we want to apply it for larger scale wetland mapping, like for provincial scale or national scale, which is a real challenge for model applicability for large scale. Another challenge to get benefit from deep learning models for large scale wetland monitoring is the availability of high amount of training data, which is not the case for most of wetland projects because the cost associated with ground truth data collection in wetland complexes is really high. And as such, in this specific study, we propose a generative AI model to simulate wetland training data instead of going to the field collecting data. So we have a limited number of training data, and we try to use them to simulate data using this GAN-based method. And then propose a vision transformer model which outperform CNN models in a couple of experiments that we designed in this study and increase the overall accuracy of wetland classification. As you may know, several other deep learning based models have been proposed in the literature for satellite image classification, specifically, for example, for land use land cover classification. However, we cannot get a high accuracy for complex applications such as wetland classification with very similar wetland types if we train these model on limited training samples. As a result, some of these classes will be easily misclassified by applying them. So in our next study, we propose a dual stream network based on 2D CNN and graph convolutional networks, which is capable of conducting the classification task using limited training sample. In another study, we used a time series of Sentinel-1 dual polarized SAR dataset, along with Sentinel-2 multispectral imagery as input data to the model. And in this proposed model, which we call it WetNet, we use multiple ensemble modules to increase the transferability of the model to other areas, and also increasing the reliability of final result. So for this specific model, we consider several convolutional and recurrent modules, and we consider them in order to extract both spatial and temporal feature in order to increase the ability of the model to distinguish between similar wetland types. And in this paper, we also compare the result and the performance of proposed model with several well-known deep learning models such as ResNet, Inception, and DenseNet. And we got several interesting results, and we discussed why, for example, a ResNet doesn't have enough generalization capacity to train, for example, on a specific area and deploy it on another area for wetland classification. And in our latest paper, which was published in the IEEE Transaction Journal last week, we proposed a new multi-temporal decomposition method based on Stokes vector parameters for hybrid compact polarimetric radar constellation mission data. And we compared the performance of these proposed decomposition with MCHI, well-known MCHI decomposition method, and observed about 4-5% improvement in the overall accuracy by applying these new temporal decomposition method. Okay, yeah, maybe I have some time to go to other environmental monitoring projects. As you can see, my main focus in my research was wetlands, but we have discovered the application of remote sensing and Earth observation in other environmental monitoring projects. So after completion of our first national wetland mapping project, we started a joint project with Sunny University under contract with the New York government to produce the first forest above ground biomass map for the entire New York state. And we developed a couple of new framework for larger scale AGB estimation. But in our latest development, we propose the combination of Sentinel-1 SAR dataset, Sentinel-2 optical imagery, and JEDI space-borne LiDAR dataset to estimate the forest AGB for the entire New York state. And for those of you who are not familiar with JEDI, JEDI is the first space-borne full waveform LiDAR on board the International Space Station, providing the first global high-resolution observation for forest vertical structure studies and monitoring. We also have several projects for GHG monitoring recently, and we have partnership from different organizations such as GHGSat, Harvard University Flux Lab, and applied a comprehensive research in this area at different scale using a virtual constellation of different satellites, from Sentinel-5P European satellite to monitor emission at the continental scale with daily revisit time to Landsat and Sentinel-2, as well as high-res GHGSat data. And GHGSat is a Montreal-based company who has the first commercial satellite specifically designed to monitor point source methane emission in different sectors. The main focus in land, but they have the capability to monitor offshore. And now we are able to monitor methane emission from different sectors, such as offshore and terrestrial oil and gas facilities and platforms, coal mining, landfill, and even livestock. For example, in one of our recent published work, we generated a benchmark dataset including 70,000 sample plumes for quantification of methane point source plumes. And to do that, we used and we simulated plumes using WRF LES model, and we added background noise from Sentinel-2 imagery in order to have more realistic samples to train our deep learning algorithms. And then we propose advanced deep learning model for estimating methane emission from these point sources. And finally, we validated our proposed method using some real cases, real detected plumes on the ground across the world. And in the next study, methane emission in 6 highly populated cities in North America were estimated. And this study leads with one of my PhD students using Sentinel-5P satellite by applying a Bayesian inversion on AWS using IMI framework. We also reported the methane concentration level in these cities for the past 2 years, which show an increased trend in all of these cities. We also quantify the contribution of different sectors to identify the main contributors in each city. And as you can see in the pie chart, the major component of emission was estimated from human-related sectors such as landfill as the most significant sources, followed by livestock in these 6 cities in the North America. We also use remote sensing and GeoAI for mapping soil particle size fraction in one of our other studies, which is this is another application of remote sensing or regional crop mapping monitoring and extracting biophysical parameters such as leaf area index, biomass for different crop types in Winnipeg. We are able to monitor oil spill both offshore and land. And for example, in this specific project, we use drone imagery and ground-based measurement using EM38 instrument to develop a machine learning model to map contaminated areas over a pipeline in Alberta. Shoreline and erosion monitoring using satellite data is another application that we worked on. Permafrost change and corresponding effect on infrastructure in Yukon using INSAR technology. And we have also this study as one of our studies in wildfire monitoring, in which we used EO based approach and also the state of the art AI models for fire spread prediction using a fire data collected in BC. And I hope these application that I review in the last couple of slides gives you some ideas about the wide range of remote sensing application in environmental monitoring. And finally, I would like to thank my partners, funding providers, and especially my highly motivated grad student who brings this world-class research capability to Memorial University. And now I'm happy to answer your question. You can also send me email for the follow-up discussion about one of these application if you are interested. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And this technical event session is open and for question and any discussions. Anyone like to really raise questions? So I may just want to start with some questions, and so looks like the very interesting topic, and I have two questions, and the first question, and image processing is an important part, and in your research, compared to the common image processing, and what do you fear? And in your remote sensing part, the image processing and in the remote sensing context is any different from the common and for instance computer science or robotics and image processing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we are talking about remote sensing, image processing. Basically, we consider two type of image, one optical image and then SAR image. So for optical image, we have several similarity with computer vision task, but we have more complex, processing, because in remote sensing optical data processing, we need to also consider several issues like georeferencing and considering the correlation with the ground measurement. But in radar, remote sensing, or SAR image processing, we have different stories. We need to have a great physical understanding of phenomena in order to be able to interpret the result. So basically, I see, a couple of, for example, studies, paper that works with radar imagery similar to computer vision imagery, but they have lack of, knowledge in physical interpretation of the result. For example, one of a common, mistake that I see when I review the papers is, for example, using deep learning approach for radar imagery. So we have several processing step in computer vision task, and for example, students or researchers use them directly in radar remote sensing. For example, for increasing the number of training data, we have a processing step called data augmentation in computer vision, in which, for example, we have different operation like it, for example, rotation or a scale, and we directly apply to SAR data. And for example, they apply 45-degree rotation to the original patch. But if in reality we have the same scene and they collected in a 45-degree difference in rotation, we will receive a different signal from the target. So we couldn't have the same, scene from SAR data by rotating the data after the collection. So yeah, for SAR data, the basic and physical understanding of phenomena is really important, and we cannot, ignore them in our processing.
I see. Thank you. And I have another question. You did mention the collaboration and
Mhm.
for this and not only to the one project but many projects, and
Mhm.
also mention the collaboration and among colleagues and with memorial and in St. John's, Newfoundland. So I want to really and further uh, ask a question on this.
Mhm.
And do you have any the current the collaboration and with Memorial and or with the Faculty of Engineering and the
Yeah.
ECE, or you have any and plan and in the future? So two level, one is current and also about the one more just for the future plan.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I now I have a strong collaboration with Dr. Eric Gill, who was my PhD supervisor, and we co-supervise two PhD students currently, and I also have some collaboration with other faculty member in the engineering department, Dr. Shiri from civil engineering, and we co-supervise two master student, a PhD student, and a postdoc fellow. And yeah, I have planned to increase my collaboration with ECE, and I talk with, for example, Reza Shahidi, and I also start some discussion with you to increase my collaboration. And from Grand Fall campus, I also collaborate with Professor Jianhua Wu, and we submitted an NSEC Alliance um, proposal recently, which we target about $5 million projects for peatland monitoring in Newfoundland in a 5-year project. So yeah, these are my collaboration with Memorial University, and as I mentioned in my presentation, I have also collaboration with other universities.
It's very good. Yeah, so I just open the session, and so that anyone and who have questions, and please and feel free to ask questions. But I saw just a few and the comments and the positive comments in the chat window. If you have any questions, and also if you want to speak it out, please. And if you don't, and just put some questions in the chat window, that we also fine. I can read out and then get the question and be answered.
Hello, Dr. Zhang. This is Eric.
Hi, Dr. Gale.
Just want to
Go ahead.
thanks for putting on the session. And I had a question for Masoud to follow up your question, and with regards to the interaction with, in particular, electrical engineering. And
Yeah.
I don't really know the answer entirely to this question, but with regards to students and graduate students in the ECE, Masoud, you've had, how far back does this go? 2 or 3 years or more since you started supervising ECE students, and how many, say, have you had and now have from ECE itself, besides the other departments and the faculty?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I graduated master's student from ECE and currently have 2 PhD students and with you, and I have 1 other PhD student in ECE.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you currently have 3 PhD students in ECE, plus you've just graduated a master's student. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I guess from a faculty or from a department perspective, if you would you be able to teach a course in ECE, say a graduate course? It might have to occur at distance because I know you're currently in Ottawa with C-Corps, but could you speak to that?
Yeah, actually, I started some discussion with Dr. Zhang about proposing some new online courses for the ECE departments. And yeah, I need to, I think, submit a proposal for the online courses because, as he mentioned, most of the courses are in person right now. But yeah, I would like to offer a couple of courses in the next few semester. So I will be in touch with Dr. Zhang regarding the courses, right?
Yeah, so this is just that would be very and interesting and for and our no matter undergrad student and grad student and really have industry experience and also an academic background. And so I believe and you are registered the professional engineer.
Yeah.
Okay, so that just even helpful, and because that would be just really and good, and if some student and approach you and for term 8 senior project, and so that would be another opportunity and for you to enrich experience and with our student. So one side is the training and for their senior project, but on the other side you may have a co-op student.
Yeah, actually, I had a couple of co students in the past 2 years. I think I have 2 of them from EC and 2 from computer science departments. Yeah, but I'm really open to that one. Yeah, so maybe is another thing that we can consider for our future collaboration.
Yeah.
Masoud, is your professional engineering certification, is that from Newfoundland or is from Ontario?
No, that's from Newfoundland.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I just wondered.
Yeah.
And also, and Masoud, just I have a question on the linkage and the between and your lab in Ottawa, and also in the Sea Corps and headquarters in St. John's. Do you still have some student and located in Sea Corps and St. John's, or some just a student and in at Memorial, and for sure, so they just directly and work with you and in Ottawa, and you have some people in there?
No, actually, all of my students from Memorial University are located in St. John's,
I see.
and yeah, in Memorial campus, yeah. But we have weekly meetings, and yeah, sometimes daily meetings, if we have some deadline for submitting papers or proposals or comprehensive exams, depends on the situations, yeah. But we have a weekly meeting with the students, and we are in touch.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And any other questions? Thanks, and Dr. Gill, and for your common questions.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I see Masoud students here in St. John's because we have group meetings in person. So those students are part of the larger remote sensing group that involve Reza Shahidi and Wayman Huang and myself here, and Masoud in Ottawa. And Masoud, he links in via electronically in some fashion or other whenever it is relevant for him to be in the group meeting.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really want to enhance our linkage and to the industry, and the Sequor definitely, and just one model and in remote sensing, and we like to really have more and more the collaboration partnership, and also there's just on the large scale of remote sensing group, and I think that would be very helpful and to improve the insight and of our student and research staff, and definitely that is beneficial.
Yeah, because as in the undergrad, we don't really have a remote sensing focus, except for the individual professors might engage work term students or like term 8 or 7-8 project students.
Right.
But given this, I mean, I think in the group meeting yesterday we had 15 people. So you're talking, remote sensing is now becoming a significant part, has been for a while, of ECE. And I think maybe I shouldn't say anything since I'm retired, but my vision would be that there would be some more focus on that in replenishing whenever time comes to boost the faculty in certain areas, to keep this remote sensing before us, because it is really, I mean, in Newfoundland, Memorial's in an ideal spot for things like wetland, ocean, remote sense. There's just a whole bunch of things,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. So I feel that the remote sensing is was our strength, and the is supposed to continue to be our strength. And I think that is very and very unique and features in, and we had this very special and geological and location and good for not only on the ocean, but now also just on the satellite and on the remote sensing from and no matter from radar, from satellite, and from the other aspect, and including different sensing mechanism, and that really can have multidisciplinary research and to promote such and research activities. And actually, this research activity will also help and us and for education, no matter undergrad and grad, and maybe grad and for more and undergrad. And I would think, and that would be also good opportunity for our term 7, term 6 student, term 8 student, and to really learn this and to get this more and into remote sensing industry and later on after their graduation.
I agree.
Yeah, so I just want to really see an hour because we just and have a good discussion. Any other questions and any and discussion and from our audience? We still have time and we just have this in the virtual room and start and at 2:30 and we just have this and booked for 1 hour. So we still have time and any questions and feel free to have this and raise and for discussion. Masoud, I have a question and further on machine learning. I'm quite interested in machine learning, and not only just from my research and interest, but also just I'd like to see and machine learning and moving to the next level. And for instance, and if we talk about the future and what it can be really leveraged after machine learning and getting into more and more impact onto and a different aspect of and science, engineering, and or any other and area. So have you thought about and for instance quantum sensing? That would be somehow interest and for remote sensing.
Yeah, actually, this is a new term that discussed a lot in machine learning, quantum machine learning. But personally, I didn't find a chance to get deep on this one. But basically, what we recently discovered in satellite image processing, and we developed several services around that, is the combination of these image processing and techniques based on machine learning, deep learning with the natural language processing techniques that recently developed. For example, something like ChatGPT. And in my recent proposal to European Space Agency, I propose to use one of these text-guided uh, deep learning models to help us for detecting the methane plumes over optical satellite imagery, in which save a lot of time for analysis, which now they use manual digitizing for detecting the plumes, but combining NLP image processing together can be a huge time saver for operational activity. So instead of spending time, for example, going to the details of satellite imagery and manually digitize, for example, a polygons around a plumes, so they can easily type, for example, some keywords like, for example, methane or plumes, and the algorithm automatically can create those polygons. So this is one of my recent interesting development, and one of my PhD students is also working in this area. So we have a lot of things to discover, but this is one of the exciting things that we recently conducted in this area.
Great, very interesting. And also just I know the data is so important and for your research and I just want to really understand the data and you have now and is a combination of free data and from the public and accessible data and also some data and that is constrained or protected data. So that is just basically the nature of your data source or your data all from public? I try to understand whether my question is clear to you.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you well. Can you repeat your question
Oh
again?
yeah, so I'm just
Yeah, because
saying
your connection.
it's yeah. So your data and use the data and for training of your machine learning model and such data and from satellite, and those data just is protected data or free data?
So most of the data that we use, and this is one of the constraints that we consider when, for example, define the scope for a new project, we focus first on the freely available data because, as you mentioned, for the training, we need, a huge number of training samples, and it would be really expensive to, for example, rely on commercial data set. So for most of our application, we rely on freely available data. But for example, for some specific application, like for example, for livestock methane emission monitoring, currently freely available data and freely available satellite sensor are not capable of detecting those methane with a low source of emission. So we have to use some of these, for example, commercial satellite
So
like GHESat, or
I
we
see.
also discover Worldview 3, which is another commercial satellite, which is beneficial,
I see.
for emission monitoring with low threshold.
For the computation, you're using Computer Canada server, just on the cloud server service?
Mm, Actually, depends on the project, but basically we use Google Cloud, which is a public cloud, and also AWS, Amazon Web Service, because most of these freely available satellites are already in the cloud, and
I
we
see.
don't need to download them. So we just send a query,
I
and we
see.
have access to a bunch of data in a
Great.
second. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think the we are just are close to 3:30, and so I think that we have the good discussion, and thank you and Dr. Mahadian and for your presentation, and I also thank everyone and for joining us, and I wish you have and a good day, and I know you have some more questions, and feel free to contact Dr. And Masoud, Mahdian, and for any further discussion. So I think I basically have all covered. And if that is the case, and we may close this session. And thank you very much. And once again, bye.
Thank you, Dr. Zheng, for organizing this.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
So Masoud, just we can talk the offline. So let me just stop the recording first.